A final farewell to a Pittsburgh legend. Former Steelers coach Chuck Noll laid to rest today. His former players and current members of the team came to the funeral to pay their respects and say goodbye. And Peggy, despite those famous faces, the service at St. Paul Cathedral in Oakland was simple and understated, much like the man himself. We have live Team 11 coverage of today's remembrance, starting with our sports director, Albie Oxenreiter, live now. Albie.
David and Peggy, when the funeral mass for Chuck Noll was held behind me at St. Paul Cathedral, there were no testimonials, no eulogies from family or friends, just a poignant and simple homily by Pittsburgh Catholic Bishop David Zubik. After the funeral mass, I talked to two of the greatest defensive players of all time about their football success and their success after football, and they say they owe it all to Charles Henry Noll. Joe Green, the first player ever drafted by Chuck Noll and the cornerstone player of the Steelers' 70s dynasty, says a great deal of what he's learned about football and about life came from Chuck Noll.
Everyday consistency, truth, knowledge, what it takes to win on the field, what it takes to win off the field.
Green was one of 8 pallbearers at today's funeral mass.
I didn't want to be, because I didn't want to have to be a part of that occasion, which would cause for a pallbearer, but it meant that he was thinking of me.
Mel Blount attended the funeral with his wife Tionda and with so many of his former teammates. Blount's own father died while he was in college, and Chuck Noll took on the role of father figure for his 14 seasons as a player.
I was blessed, like the rest of these guys who played for Chuck, to be in his presence and to learn under him and to grow under him and to become men.
I mentioned that Joe Green was a pallbearer today for Chuck Noll. So were Steelers President R. Rooney II, former Steelers linebacker Andy Russell, and longtime Steelers PR Director Joe Gordon. Coming up in 1 hour, Joe Green talks about how Chuck Noll
Sorry about losing Albie there. Many current Steeler players and coaches also came to Oakland today to show their respect for the man who built the Steelers empire. And they told Channel 11's Bill Phillips they wouldn't be where they are today without Chuck Noll. Bill?
Peggy, after this afternoon's practice over at the Steelers South Side facility, I had a chance to catch up with quarterback Ben Roethlisberger, who was a part of the Steelers group that attended Coach Noll's funeral. In the past hour, I had the opportunity to talk to him about Noll's legacy.
Well, it's it's family. We wanted to. A couple of us went to represent the current team because obviously we couldn't all go with practice and meetings. So, we want a couple representatives of the current team to show our love and respect for the family member.
Now, not all of the Steelers players and coaches that are currently on the roster had an opportunity to attend Coach Noll's funeral, but one person that did was offensive coordinator Todd Haley, and he has first-hand memories of the legend that is Chuck Noll. The former Steelers ball boy, whose dad Dick was one of the Steelers front office stars in the 70s, was thankful that current head coach Mike Tomlin let him attend the funeral mass for the legendary head coach that he watched lead the Steelers into battle from a vantage point that few enjoyed.
I sat in there at Three Rivers at halftime of games and before games and got to hear a lot of Coach Noll talks and see a lot of them coaching at training camp. So, in a secondary way, had a great influence on somebody that become a coach in the NFL.
While Haley saw Noll firsthand, Steelers All-Pro center Marquise Pouncey, who never met Noll, has felt Noll's influence throughout his brief time in Pittsburgh.
He's a legendary coach, man, and I think he's been talked about here, and everybody appreciate the things he's done for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And for us to go over there and give a little bit of our time, man, was awesome and pretty cool to see that.
Do you feel his legacy here in this building every day?
Oh, man, 4 championships, man, you got to feel that. If you don't, something's wrong.
A lot of respect from the current Steelers to the greatness of the past and the greatness of Chuck Noll. Now, coming up in about an hour, we'll talk with Ben Roethlisberger about today's minicamp. It started today on the South Side. Reporting live from Heinz Field, I'm Bill Phillips, Channel 11 News.